You're watching LMCC, your community TV.
Welcome to The Pulse. I'm Jennifer Ray, your host, and today I have an absolutely fabulous guest. When we were discussing what shows to have on The Pulse, I said, what do you think about immigration? We hear about it everywhere you listen to, whether it be on the radio or television show you turn on, and I couldn't have a more perfect guest. Not only is my guest an immigration attorney, and she is also a U.S. citizen that came here as an immigrant, went through law school, and she is just wonderful and very knowledgeable. And so I want to welcome her to our program, and that is Ms. Aneta Toporowska-Lennartson. Welcome, Aneta.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure.
Well, I think that it will be really fun just to we're not going to get into anything political. We're just going to answer some general questions that I think the regular person doesn't know. So I wanted to talk about a couple of things. First of all, you came here originally as a foreign exchange student.
Yes, I did, Jennifer. 23 years ago, believe it or not. I don't know how that really fast at the time flew by. But yes, I was an exchange student. I was 17. I was always fascinated with America. My grandma was here in the 80s living in Chicago, and she definitely injected me with the American dream, and I always wanted to come here. So I came as an exchange student, and then traveled back and forth, and was headhunted for scholarship. And I came back for my master's degree in San Scholastica College, and one thing led to another, and I went to law school at Hamline University, and here I am. It's been over 10 years that I had my practice, and I really love my job.
And your practice is your law firm, and that is Top Law.
Yes, it is. And
not only do you do immigration, but you also practice family law as well.
Yes.
And the two interchange a lot.
Yes, they do. And usually people are looking for someone who's knowledgeable in both to better understand the system and the consequences of all their actions. So I do both of them. I do a little bit of estate planning as well.
And you were born in communist Poland.
Yes, I was.
And I think a lot of people don't even realize that Poland was a communist country at one point in time after World War II, and Russia came in and kind of took control until some things changed. And we don't need to get into that. But Poland has a very rich history. It's really quite amazing, and it's been kind of fun to read about it because I wasn't that familiar with it. But you're now a U.S. citizen. So what was the path that it took you to become a U.S. citizen?
Well, initially I was on a student visa since I was doing my master's degree, and later I was in law school. I was allowed to remain in the United States on the student visa and have optional practical training that allowed me to either work in the field or gain some experience in the legal field, and as well as management to familiarize with the system. And then I was also helping a famous Polish artist, and through a managerial role of his company, and there is a way and a path to get a green card, which is through extraordinary ability, and we were able to obtain permanent residency. And how it works is that you have to wait 5 years after getting your green card to apply for citizenship. There is a quicker way for people who marry a U.S. citizen, and they only have to wait 3 years. So that's the quickest way how to obtain citizenship in this country.
Can you explain, because we're going to really basic definitions, what is a green card? What does it allow you to do?
Green card is a permanent resident card. It allows you to be in the country, have permission to work. The only, I think, restrictions that I'm aware of is that you cannot run for a president and you cannot vote. You cannot vote until you do become a U.S. citizen. And if you actually try or attempt to vote, that disqualifies you from later becoming a U.S. citizen. The laws are really strict. People that do not speak English very well, sometimes they check on the box that they are U.S. citizens or they can vote, and there are some severe consequences later in the process when they actually apply for citizenship. So this is These are the only two things that are really not allowed, but you can be here and live as long as you want, and then you can apply for citizenship. And then you have all the full rights that every U.S. citizen in this country has.
Now, I asked a colleague when I said I was going to do a show on immigration, he had two questions that rose to the top. One was, how many legal immigrants does the United States actually allow into our country? And so we have a graph that we're going to put up. In 1820, we had 8,385 immigrants that we actually documented. I'm not sure how thorough our records were way back then, but that was the start of our recording. And in 1910, we had just over 1,041,000. And then it kind of stayed around 250, 300,000 until the 70s. And then we had a big bump up in the 80s, and we had 641,000. In 1991, we had 1826. And I did have to do a little digging because I'm learning about this immigration myself as to why those numbers were so large in the early 90s. Ronald Reagan signed on November 6, 1986. He allowed asylum or a pathway to citizenship for several million people. So we have a couple of years of really high spikes there in what we were calling immigration because they did it the legal way. And then we kind of went back down to around 703,000, and then we've stayed at around or a little over 1 million a year since then. Now, the second question he asked, and this was also posed when I was fortunate enough to be at your booth in Wayzata, why the professor, who was from Kenya, and his name is Mr. Mzenga Wanyama, and he came here on a student visa in 1992, and it was a big deal making all the news that he was getting deported. And so what is the reason that he was actually getting deported?
Sure. I do not know all the details since I was not on his case. However, he did not adjust his status, and what it means, he kind of abandoned his status when he did not reapply for either an extension of his visa or did not seek any legal pathway of becoming a green card holder. And there are several ways that he could have done that, and it looks like he didn't. And then when it was discovered that he does not have any permission to be here or work here, they initiated removal proceedings, which is called the deportation. And he did not have any relief that he could ask for, either through family member to become a green card holder or through employment. Maybe before he was employed by college, they could have applied for his green card and permanent residence through work, or he could have participated in the lottery. It's a great way of becoming a green card holder as well. Sometimes it's suspended by the legislature because of the numbers and limits on each country and the number of visas that are available to be here. However, he did not utilize any of those ways. And when it was discovered that he does not have a green card, unfortunately, he was removed from the country. My suspicion is that many years go by during that time, and the law says that if you lose the status and you accrue a larger number and years of unlawful presence, that disqualifies you further from any relief and getting a green card. So you have to, like I had to do, extend and ask for my student visa being renewed all the time, so I do not accrue any unlawful presence, and then find a legal way how to become a green card holder, yes.
Now we hear all over the news, DACA, DACA, DACA. What exactly is DACA?
Of course. Well, DACA is a deferred action for childhood arrivals. What it means that, as we know, a lot of young kids were smuggled through the United States to seek a better life. And for those specific individuals, a legislature created a way how they can be here and work legally and not be deported. Deferred action means that they cannot be placed in removal proceedings until they are covered by DACA. It was only created for 2 years at a time. They had to meet specific requirements like be in school and be in high school or seek a college degree, obviously not have any criminal background and no felonies, no major misdemeanors, criminal charges against them. They would have to meet specific guidelines of how young they were. They had to be under 16 years old, I believe in 2012 when it was created. If you met all those requirements, you can get a work permit, and you have some kind of protection from ICE for them not seeking removal proceedings against you during that time. And unfortunately, at this time it is suspended, but those people who did receive DACA protection and received work permits, they are able to renew it for another 2 years. But the situation is unfortunately uncertain at this point what will happen, and President Trump is trying to get rid of that protection.
What procedures are there any to become legal?
Well, the family immigration is one of the ways. The only requirement is that there is a special waiver required. So let's say somebody is here illegally and they marry a U.S. citizen. The U.S. citizen can sponsor him or her for a green card. The requirement is that they have to meet really stringent requirements and prove that extreme hardship will occur to the U.S. citizen or the children. And this country is the only country that they can actually live and protect and support the families. They have to go back to their home country, let's say it's Mexico, for an interview at the consulate after the waiver is approved. Waiver takes several months to get approved. The statistics say that it's only 30% of cases actually get approved, so it's a very difficult process, but I was successful in obtaining several waivers and saved a lot of families. So after the waiver is approved, they can actually adjust their status. They go back for the final interview at the embassy. They come back here and they get a green card. They get a social security number. They have a work permit, and they are protected and cannot be removed.
That's if they have a family, they have some options.
That's right.
If they don't have a family, do they have any options?
If they accrued the unlawful presence and they did not have any protection or immigration status, unfortunately, they would have to go back and see if they can either ask permission to reentry when they find a way, or a family member, or employment, or other ways. Unfortunately, United States puts several boundaries to that as like a 3-year bar or 10-year bar. If you were illegal in this country, let's say, and you did not leave the country in a given time period, you are forbidden to ever coming back in the United States for 10 years. You have to wait out that period, or you have to ask permission to come, and you still have to have legitimate grounds on coming back legally.
Coming back in. I understand the argument on both sides. Some are saying, hey, you're here illegally. Other people who are following the rules can't come in because you're here. We've only got so many people. And then I understand the other side as well. They're here, and the reality is we're not going to kick 11 million people or 20 million people, whatever number you is actually accurate, out. So it's a complicated situation. So how do people come here legally, and what is the process?
You can also obtain your green card through employment. There are 4 different categories. Obviously, when you are in the 3% of extraordinary ability, famous painter, an actor, a model, a famous professor that published numerous books, or accomplished something great in their field, they can apply and petition for a green card. They do not even need a sponsor in terms of a financial sponsorship to prove that they will not become a public welfare subject and gain benefits through the federal government. So that's one of the requirements. All the people that do seek permanent residence need to prove that they will not be a burden to this country. So they have to have someone who will vouch for them, essentially, that they have enough income, that they will not go on welfare, and they will not go on food stamps and things like that. So that's one protection. The employer can do that. There are different seasonal categories. There are researchers. There are professors. Each category comes with the limitations, like you mentioned earlier, of how many people can be here, and also the waiting times differ. Obviously, the higher up in the preference group you are, the quicker you will receive a green card, but that's another way how you can do that. Another way for investors, there is an investor visa as well. You can get a green card if you invest $1 million or a lesser amount in agriculture. So I know people who obtained visa that way and got their green card through investment. Obviously, there's a lot of paperwork, and you have to prove that the money comes from a legitimate source. and other stringent requirements. The visa lottery, it's been very popular for many, many years. People apply. It actually sounds like a lottery, and it is a lottery. People apply through the computer system, and there are limits on each country. Let's say 1,000 people from Poland would have a chance, or 20 people from Germany, different levels of that, and people get a notification that you actually got a green card. You can bring your family members, you can bring your children under 21 that are unmarried, and your spouses, that you come on the same visa and you get your green cards through that. So it's an excellent way how to do that. And essentially, these are the most common ways how to obtain a green card. So hopefully they continue to be in place. The current government is trying to remove some of those visa procedures and only allow U.S. citizens to bring their spouses and even limit their parents, like fathers and mothers, to come. So that's going to be really difficult. What's also proposed that's very problematic for a lot of people is that there's such a negative talk about illegal immigration currently that there are proposed laws that would actually criminalize helping illegal immigrants. And the example that I always give to people is, let's say you're a teacher in public school and you gave a ride to a, let's say, 7-year-old child because mom couldn't come and pick him up. You can be criminalized and put in jail for helping illegal immigrant child, knowing, obviously you have to know that the family is illegal in the country. So it's a very strict and very problematic situation, and a lot of people obviously opposed to such a severe consequences for helping people. So we have to do something about that. I always say that it's not a perfect immigration system, and something needs to happen because, like you said, there's so many millions of people in this country that need help, and we cannot just simply get rid of them. Our country benefit from their presence here, and like myself, I'm a big proponent of immigrants here, and we definitely add more value than negativity into the system. So let's hope that we can reach an agreement and everybody will be happy at the end.
Well, everyone here is either an immigrant or a descendant from an immigrant. So that's the beauty of the United States. We wanted to talk about dual citizenship, and if you can discuss, because it was news to me, that when you apply for citizenship, you can have a dual citizenship, but some you cannot have a dual citizenship. So can you explain that or talk a little bit about that?
After you get your green card, and like I indicated earlier, after 5 years of having the green card, you can petition the government to be a U.S. citizen, and you become a U.S. citizen, but you also had citizenship from your previous country, home country. So let's say I was from Poland, and Poland actually allows dual citizenship. So I'm sitting here right now, I'm a Polish and American citizen, but other countries do not allow that, like China or other countries that are more stricter. They actually will make you force you to make a decision and choose. You have to denounce either Chinese citizenship or you're not even applying for American citizenship. So it's very hard to do so. Like European country, Germany, they strip you from some benefits. If you become an American citizen, you lose a lot of social and financial perks as well. Thankfully, the majority of the countries in the world allow dual citizenship. I know people that have 3 citizenships, but at some point the passport laws become stricter and you have to use one passport traveling. So I heard some of my clients got in trouble, let's say going to Europe and using the European passport and then coming to America and using the American passport. Now they're being stopped at the border and being asked which passport they're using. So as long as you're consistent and use that properly, you will not get in trouble, but you have to be sensitive about that.
Is that why a lot of people come here, and I'm not sure what the numbers are, but I know it's tens of thousands. I don't know if that's 20,000 or if it's 100,000 a year, come here to have their children so that they're born here? Or if they're born here and they're from China, do they have automatic U.S. citizenship and China citizenship? Is that the way to get around that loophole?
No, I believe that if the child of a Chinese mother would be born here, she would have probably denounced the Chinese citizenship, and maybe it's not as easy as it sounds, but they will not be allowed back in China. And I'm not familiar with Chinese law, but since it's a communist country, I assume that's what it would be. They would be precluded of coming back. They would lose their retirement accounts. The mother would lose maybe potentially even her own citizenship, although it's not translated directly to the child. But there are some severe consequences, yes.
Because I have heard that a lot of people do that. So if they're losing their other citizenship,
No, but
I guess maybe that's a way just to be here? I don't know.
it is. They call it right anchor babies, and some people don't like that. But that's the fastest, the easiest way to become a U.S. citizen. You're born here, and automatically you become a citizen. So a lot of illegal immigrants come here, and they have children, and the children become U.S. citizens. And not many countries in the world allow that. It's really hard in Europe, in Eastern Europe, or Sweden, or Norway, countries like that, to be automatically a citizen. You have to go through a lot of processes to do that.
I was under the impression, although I don't know, United States is like the only country that allows that. So a lot of people will take vacations just to have their babies here. So they can kind of,
Unfortunately.
not have to go through all those, jump through those hoops and all that red tape. Well, clearly our Congress has a lot to do, both sides. And I had gone through, which I found very interesting, the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986, signed by President Reagan on November 6, 1986, under which 2.7 million undocumented foreign U.S. residents obtained legal immigrant status and granted amnesty to an additional 3.2 million, as I understand it, through some sort of pathway. So we haven't had that kind of sweeping reform for going on now to the 90s to 2006, 30 plus years. Our Congress has to get to work, both sides. We've got to do something, right?
That's right. A lot of people think that would be the best solution, but we are not there yet. And however, there are different ways to get there. I do know people that obtain political asylum through that process, and that saved a lot of families that sought refugee. And
that was what I wanted to talk to you about also, is the asylum process, because you came from communist Poland. So what is the asylum process? Does that put you ahead of other people? Do you check the box and that automatically grants you? What is the process when you're coming from a suppressed, I'm not sure of the proper name, suppressed country, where you are in danger or you're worried about being in danger, or your thoughts and religion, you could get persecuted, killed?
That's right. Persecution is one of the requirements. Back in the day when President Reagan granted that, there was a political asylum. People from Poland were trying to escape from the Russian regime, and that was the only way not to be killed, essentially, if you did not support the government and communistic regime. So they were able to come here and stay. You probably heard about the caravan recently. It was all over the news. That's another way how people, those who were actually allowed to either come as close to the border to apply for asylum, persecution under various grounds, political, religious, racial, sexual orientation, all sorts of grounds and bases are given for why those people are seeking asylum. So it is working. It takes a long time. You have to have a credible fear interview. You have to present evidence and show that family members or close people to you were either killed or persecuted, and that if you go back to your country, you actually will be killed. So it's a high standard to meet, but unfortunately with situation going back in Honduras or other countries like that, there definitely grounds giving them right to be here, and hopefully those petitions are approved.
Yes, there's a lot of those petitions, a lot of horrible, and who doesn't want to come to the United States? We're the greatest country in the world.
That's what they say. It is.
So, now you have a podcast. You host a podcast on immigrants and immigrant success stories.
Yeah, absolutely. It's called Immigrant Invincible. We promote success stories of immigrants, people who add so much to this country. And you can listen on www.immigrantinvincible.com. We have a Facebook page, which is also called Immigrant Invincible. So we welcome anyone to listen to our podcast, or if you have a person that you would like to share the great story and what a great impact they have made to the United States, and how much are they helping the communities, especially here in Minnesota. I would like to focus on Minnesota for now, so please let us know. It's amazing. I also have a law firm in Chicago and New York, so we have some success stories from those cities as well.
And you are one success story in and of yourself.
Thank you.
Now, how do people reach you? Name, phone number, Top Law is your firm, website.
Yes, Top Law, we have an office in Burnsville and downtown Minneapolis. We also, as I mentioned, in Chicago and New York. The website is www.toplaw.legal. The best phone number is 1-844-448-6752. But it's easier to remember if it's
The
Top Law. Yes.
Absolutely.
And my email is Aneta, my first name, Aneta, @toplaw.legal.
And the Top Law is because your name is Toporowska.
That's right. My companies are starting with the name of Top. People have issues with pronouncing very difficult names. So we made it easy for everyone to remember. So.
And in addition to that, I just want to mention that if you're at the Renaissance Festival, stop by, say hello to Aneta, because you provide a really fabulous treat for people who are looking for some good food at the Renaissance Festival, and that is?
And these are a pierogi. We have a booth by the name of Pierogi Castle, and we have been awarded a second best food at the Renaissance Festival. So we are making a lot of Minnesotans very happy providing delicious Polish food at the Renaissance Festival. And the next step is obviously State Fair. So,
wouldn't that be marvelous?
Yes.
That would be very fun, very fun. Aneta, thank you so much for coming way out on a very cold, slippery road today, and it was just wonderful to see you again. And we're letting people know a little bit more about immigration.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, my dear.
Have a lovely day.
Thanks so much for watching The Pulse. I'm Jennifer Ray, and hopefully you learned a little something more than you knew before about immigration. I know that I did just in preparing the show. So thanks so much. Godspeed. Until next time, we'll see you then.